What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, I got kind of a fun one. It's a little bit outside news, if you will, because it's related to New York. But let's talk about this because it kind of goes to show the derangement of Democrats, y'all, and the hypocrisy, as a matter of fact. You want to see some blatant hypocrisy from Democrats? This is the place to be, because that is what we do around here. We point out the hypocrisy of the corporate press, Democrats, and Republicans from time to time. Yeah, don't let me fool you. Don't think that I'm just some staunch Republican, some partisan guy. No, when Republicans make mistakes, yeah, I let you know about it, right? Like, I don't think, Trump keeping TikTok around is a good idea. I think that's a bad idea, and I think Trump is a bad guy for doing so. I also kind of went after Trump a little bit for the funding bill, because we're still way into the deficit, right? But once again, I kind of excuse that away a little bit for the time being, just for the time being, because you can't go from $1.7 trillion deficit spending to zero just overnight. Right? It's not going to happen. We got to give Donald Trump some time to fire all these people, for all this stuff to go through the court system, and then for these agencies to actually reappropriate their budgets down to at least some sort of semblance of fiscal responsibility. Something like that. I mean, a little bit of a deficit, I would probably cheer for that. Although I don't think we should be funding the government in a deficit at this juncture, though, with the current status of the country. Yeah, that looks to be, at least from where I'm sitting, damn near impossible to balance the budget. Although we just done it 30 years ago, under a Democrat, by the way, President Bill Clinton. Let's get into this. Trump extends deadline for New York to end congestion toll for Manhattan drivers. This is absurd, y'all. This one's crazy, right? It's kind of fun. It's a little bit light on the politics. So let's get into this, though. The Trump administration has pushed back a Friday deadline for New York to end its new $9 congestion toll on most drivers entering Manhattan. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy on Thursday said he was giving the state an additional 30 days as discussions continue on the Republican administration's demand. You love how they put this. But he also lashed out at New York officials who have said for weeks they did not intend to comply with the deadline, as they have filed a lawsuit challenging Duffy's decision to rescind the toll's federal approval last month. Yeah, so this toll had to be approved federally for some reason, and Joe Biden just said, yeah, sure, go right ahead, right? Joe Biden, imagine this. Joe Biden. And the impetus for this, right, was, it's going to relieve congestion. We don't want cars getting into Manhattan for some reason. Right, because there's too many cars here, and the planet's bad. You would think that's what that means, right? But hang on, Joe Biden's a Democrat. They're supposed to stand up for the small guy. Adding a toll to this is absurd for congestion purposes. Now, anybody that can't afford that extra $9 because it's so expensive to live in New York, to work in New York, to do anything in New York, yeah, they just can't go into Manhattan now. So basically, that is telling the elites, come right on in, here's an extra fee, and telling everybody, every average everyday American who, struggles to get by, you can't come into Manhattan, by the way. Yeah, you're not allowed in Manhattan. Blatant hypocrisy, y'all. It's absurd. Your refusal to end cordon pricing and your open disrespect toward the federal government is unacceptable, Duffy wrote in a strongly worded post on X, formerly Twitter. Know that the billions of dollars the federal government sends to New York are not a blank check. Continued non-compliance will not be taken lightly. So this is a threat, just outright, and I love to see this. Like, please, Donald Trump, if they do not comply with your order revoking this cordon pricing, as they call it, then stop any federal funding that goes to New York. Just blanketly, boom. Like, stop them. Just, if they do not comply, put the screws to these people. force them to capitulate to your will, because these rogue states like New York, this is all absurd. Once again, they claim to be doing this for the climate, but once again, it's to the detriment of the poor. But they're always the ones taking up for the poor. This is what's so absurd about all of this, because they want to, all this green energy nonsense that we can't afford, which drives up energy costs. They want you to go out and buy an electric vehicle, which currently costs a lot more than a gasoline-powered vehicle, right? Basically trying to excise poor people, make a new serf class. They want to eliminate the middle class. They want to just have the United States be a playground for the elites, which for the rest of the world it kind of already is, because in case you didn't know, even the bottom 1% in the United States is in the top 1% of the world, for crying out loud, when you break it all down. But it's just absurd what Democrats are doing here. And I understand, look, this is just a simple congestion fee. But, they already have to pay tolls to get into Manhattan. You got to pay on bridges and whatnot, tunnels, all that. There's a toll at every entry point into Manhattan. You're adding another $9, it's like $10, right? That's somebody's lunch for the day. And I imagine there's a lot of people that struggle to get to work every day, to travel to work. This is going to make that even harder. People, maybe they can't catch a bus or catch a train, catch a subway. You never know. Maybe they want to drive because they feel safer in their car than they do on the freaking subway. Right? Maybe that's the case. I've never been to New York. I've been through New York, but I've never been in New York, so I have no idea how safe it is. However, I did hear the horrific stories of people being pushed in front of subway trains. That's absurd. Like, what human does this? Obviously, something wrong with their mental capabilities, clearly, but let's keep going. New York Governor Kathy Hochul's office shrugged off the announcement. We've seen Secretary Duffy's tweet, which doesn't change what Governor Hochul has been saying all along. The cameras are staying on, spokesperson Avi Small said in a statement referring to the system of traffic cameras used to access the tolls to drivers in the congestion zone. The fee started January 5th and comes on top of tolls drivers already paid to cross bridges and tunnels into Manhattan. It is meant to help deter drivers and relieve traffic congestion while also providing millions of dollars in new revenue to the city's beleaguered transit system. Oh, we get this, folks. They're going to try to put out the excuse that, we're going to do infrastructure upgrades to roads and whatnot for this, right? Once again, taking money from the poor people and giving it to the rich, right? Like, I can't stand this idea. This is why I'm so against taxing wealth, right? A lot of people, I got heckled like through the freaking roof on a video I did with talking about taxing the wealth. People like, oh, you're stupid. You want rich people to be rich? I don't care what other people like. I really don't. But taxing wealth is absurd, like in the manner that they want to, right? And you're giving it to the government. I don't like that at all. The government is not going to redistribute that money. I'm sorry. They will take and scrape a bunch of it off the top. Sure, some of it might make its way to you, but I highly doubt it, right? Not giving the money to the government. I would much rather those rich billionaires keep their money than them have to give it to the government, for crying out loud. I do not trust the government whatsoever. I can't stand that argument, by the way. Similar toll programs have long existed in other cities, including London, Stockholm, Milan, and Singapore, but they have never been tried in the U.S. It's because it's kind of un-American, if you will. That's pretty much putting a cover fee to get into the city, for crying out loud. That's charging somebody to come into your city. It's absurd. Trump, whose namesake Trump Tower penthouse and other properties are within the congestion zone, vowed to stop the toll as soon as he took office. And once again, this is the corporate press trying to manipulate you. I'm not sure what their angle is on this. Like, oh, is Donald Trump just doing this because he has a tower that's within the congestion zone? Like, so what? Like, is that supposed to matter to me? I don't understand their angle for adding that into this, because it has nothing to do with this news article. But, the corporate press, they do this on a constant and steady basis, and it's all meant to manipulate you. Duffy, in his decision to rescind federal approval, called the fee a slap in the face to working class Americans and small business owners. Jano Lieberman, chairman and CEO of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority that administers the tolls, vowed earlier this week that the Friday deadline would come and go with no changes to tolling. He maintained the Trump administration lacks the legal authority to revoke approvals granted under former President Joe Biden's administration. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's correct on that, because that was done by the president. I think it could be undone by the president, don't you think? But I didn't research that, so I have no idea. Nothing is going to change, and we are very confident that there won't be a rollback of congestion pricing, because the program stepped through every hoop on the way to getting that federal approval, Lieberman said Tuesday at an unrelated event in Penn Station. It can't be unilaterally rescinded. Hochul, meanwhile, has met privately with President Donald Trump at least twice in recent weeks to convince him to drop his opposition to the toll. State officials have said the tolling plan is working as intended. Yeah, and you're taxing. It's absurd, y'all. I can't stand these types of fees, right? Joe Biden touted getting rid of these junk bank fees, and then he's going to approve a congestion toll. Isn't that just as bad? Like, seriously. They say thousands of fewer vehicles are heading into central Manhattan each day, and commuters who continue to drive in are seeing shorter drive times on bridges, tunnels, and busy cross streets. The toll is also on track to generate roughly $500 million by the end of the year, allowing planned transit improvements to move forward, according to a recent MTA report. The status quo remains, which means everyone can continue to expect less traffic, faster commutes, and safer streets in Manhattan, MTA spokesperson John McCarthy said in a statement Thursday. Now, that's a pretty good point right there, and I kind of understand that you're trying to reduce congestion. I get that, but at the same time, right, like, you've created this enclave where millions of people pour into this place to work and do all kinds of other stuff, right? So now you're taxing them because you guys built this area up, right? You couldn't expand outward anymore, so what did you do? You went upwards, the third dimension, for crying out loud. And now that it's become overpopulated, your idea to reduce the congestion, to make your drive time better, is to eliminate some people and not allow them access to this area. This is essentially what it's going to do, because people run on budgets, right? People only have X amount of dollars they can spend. And if they have to spend another $9, some people just don't have that $9. And they're going to have to either ride with a friend, commute with somebody else, blah, blah, blah. They'll have to figure out some sort of way to get to their job, to get to their house. Of course, if you live in Manhattan, you're probably not worried about $9, to be honest with you. But, this is just small scale stuff, to be honest. And, I'm just trying to make some arguments back and forth here, because why not? I just find it hypocritical for Democrats to add a tax when they're complaining at Donald Trump for tariffs, for crying out loud, that have no guarantee of actually affecting you for the most part, right? Because the only way you're going to get taxed on these is, one, if you buy imported goods, which you probably do, right, imported goods from said country, and two, if the company actually chooses pass that tax on to you, in other words, right? So what the markets think a lot of times on this, they're going to absorb some of that cost, some of that tariff. To me, that's a good thing, because they've got to stay competitive, right? If all the pricing is competitive and this one country is getting tariffed by 25%, they're not just going to raise the price of that product 25%. Nobody's going to buy that product anymore because, why, it's 25% more expensive. Why would you? So, to stay competitive, and on a lot of these items, they're going to absorb that cost. Cut their overhead a little bit. Hey, it is what it is. That's just the reality of the situation. But Democrats, they'll tell you, oh, it's tax on the poor, right? Because that's who's disproportionately affected or whatever. Yeah, I find that to be nonsense. It could be true, sure. Could be. But they're not telling you the whole story when they tell you things like that. And that's what I can't stand. I like you to have all the facts here. Right? Like the argument right at the end of this story that it knocks down congestion. People are getting to and from Manhattan a lot quicker. Hey, that's a good argument there. Sure. But you're still cutting out a segment. That's a lot of people not able to come into Manhattan anymore. Right? Because they can't afford to. So it's disproportionately affecting the small guy, which Democrats constantly rail against. This is why I say it's blatant hypocrisy on their part. Plus, it's just giving more money to the government, which I can't stand. But I've rambled on for long enough. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. I thought you bet I was going to say something different, didn't you? Yeah, that's all I got for this one. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Don't forget to smash that like, subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video all over the place. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.